into the most electrifying podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is G Money Grant Mitchell. No, I don't normally refer to myself as that, but my partner, Tanner Kern, does. And as you can see, he's not here with us on the show, so it only felt right for me to take over and do him justice with the intro. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Obviously, like I said, Tanner's not going to be here on today's episode, but that doesn't mean that we don't have an awful lot to cover in the world of football specifically. Also some baseball, maybe even a little bit of basketball. We're going to jump into all of it. If you're unfamiliar with the show, this is Ride the Line. And normally myself and Tanner, we're here debating sports topics, previewing some upcoming games, talking about some sports betting stuff, trying to make you guys money, and also just enjoying ourselves and getting some hot takes out on the internet. If you hear anything that you like or that you don't like, please jump in the comment section. Tanner and I are always responding to those. So head on down there. Let us know what you think. And without further ado, guys, before we jump into this episode, you've got to hit the subscribe button. Okay, you just have to. We're not going to keep posting if we don't get more subscribers. We appreciate everybody that's a part of the community, everybody that hits the like button, and everybody that does leave the comments. We appreciate you all. But it's your job, okay? And I'm going to give you 3 seconds here. Hit that subscribe button. 3, 2, 1. That should have given you enough time. Okay, so there's only one place that it makes sense to start with today, and that's obviously in the World Series. So the Los Angeles Dodgers go ahead and take this thing home in 5 games. Nice little gentleman sweep. Tanner and I both predicted the Dodgers in 6, but we did talk about the possibility that Dodgers in 5 could happen, and ultimately that is what came through here. Now, that is not to say the Yankees did not have a shot in this game and realistically should have won this game. This was the ultimate shoot yourself in the foot moment. This is one of the most avoidable losses in a championship game or series in the history of sports. The Yankees were up 5-0. They give up 5 unearned runs. They have a balk. They have 3 errors. They have a catcher's interference. And ultimately, they lose this thing 7-6 at home. They're the first team in MLB history to give up 5 unearned runs, a balk, a catcher's interference, and some other stuff, 3 errors in the same game, whether it be regular season or postseason. Not just World Series, not just postseason, any game at all. We have never seen a team deal with this many self-inflicted wounds in the same game before. And I know that the Dodgers have gotten a lot of flack over years past because they always enter the season as the championship favorite, and they hardly ever do it. They only did it the one time in 2020, and they've underachieved based on that standard. This is the thing. When you get in a situation where a team is leaving the door open, the mark of a great team, the mark of a champion, is they punish you for your mistakes. It's like what we're seeing with the Kansas City Chiefs right now. They are not playing the best football. Certainly not the best football we've seen from them even within the last couple of years. Everybody knows that. But they are so good because if you give them the smallest amount of space, they're going to take it. You give them an inch, they're not taking a mile. They're taking 100 miles. They're booking a round-trip flight with those miles. And that's what the Dodgers were able to do last night. Some key situational hitting. The Yankees, they've got some of their best pitchers on the mound. Doesn't matter. The Dodgers are able to load up the bases. The Yankees have to bring in Luke Weaver to pitch 3 straight games for the first time in his career. He ends up doing all right. He only gives up 2 runs, with the bases loaded, no outs. But ultimately, those 2 runs made the difference in this game. And it's funny, too, because Aaron Judge finally broke out of his hitting slump, and he actually smacked a home run, which I got to say, a couple people I know predicted that, and that kind of blew my mind. I was not tailing them on that bet. But they were right, and Judge did his thing, but he drops the ball in center. Again, Volpe misses the throw to third. Catcher's interference in the later innings of the game. It's unexcusable. It's unacceptable. This series should be going at least one more game. And if you're the Yankees, you've won a couple games in a row here now. You finally got some momentum behind you. Yeah, you just used Garrett Cole, so he's not going to be available, but there would have been some real juice in that locker room. And I think they could have made it interesting, but ultimately they didn't. So congratulations to the Dodgers. I believe they deserved it with how they played throughout this postseason and most of the regular season as well. So hat tip to them. Money buys happiness. Money buys you championships. No hate, Dodgers. Look, you got a great team. You got a bunch of MVPs. We'll see how you look into next season, but for the off season, you get to enjoy it. Let's move on over to the NFL because that is going to be the bulk of today's show. I'm recording this on Thursday, posting on Thursday. Don't even know why I felt the need to say recording. It's Thursday, and that means we've got Thursday Night Football. We've got the Houston Texans going on the road to face the New York Jets. And if you've been living under a rock, this game might not matter too much from a standings perspective. But as far as narratives and trajectories of teams, this is one of the most important matchups of the year. For the Houston Texans, no Nico Collins, no Stephon Diggs. You got CJ Stroud, who most people regard as a top 5, top 6 quarterback in the league. What is he going to be able to do without his top 2 wideout options? Think back to last year. Tank Dell did have some very explosive games as the number 1 receiver as a rookie last year. He hasn't hit more than, I think, 50-something receiving yards in a single game this season. But you would have to imagine Stroud's going to be leaning into him and also this running game. Joe Mixon is one of the more underrated signings of the offseason. He went over 100 yards rushing in 4 out of 5 games this season that he's been healthy for, obviously. And he's healthy. He's ready to play on Thursday. So you got to think going on the road for an AFC matchup, short week of rest, they're probably going to be leaning into him. On the other side, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, this is the season from hell. This is the reality that nobody from New York, whether that be ownership, fans, media, whoever, this is the reality that nobody wanted to acknowledge, which is that, the 7-10 with Zach Wilson and a top 2, top 3 defense in the league, maybe Aaron Rodgers doesn't get better than that. Maybe this isn't an upgrade. Aaron Rodgers, throughout his career, everybody knows is better than Zach Wilson. But Aaron Rodgers running this offense, his leadership, the drama, all of that combined has not made the Jets a better team than they were with Zach Wilson. They're 2-6. If they're going to match Wilson's record of 7-10, then they've got to go 4-4 down the stretch. No, sorry, they've got to go 5-4 down the stretch. And with what you're seeing from them, that doesn't look very likely. Yes, they've got an easy schedule, but this team does not look good. The offense doesn't seem to be on the same page. Breece Hall is very talented, but I think he's almost been a little overhyped to a certain extent. Aaron Rodgers loves to check the ball down to him a lot of the time. He doesn't seem to be. Devontae Adams has not had the desired impact on the offense that you were looking for. And the Jets defense, it's still very good. But when you're counting on them to be a top 3, top 5 unit in the NFL for 3 straight seasons, it's something that's not sustainable. You rarely see excellent defenses repeat in the following year, much less 3 seasons in a row. Now, the Jets have great personnel, obviously, and they have done a good job up to this point, but it's not something that you would expect to see. And as the season progresses, it would not be a surprise to see kind of physical and mental exhaustion just start to set in. Look at the defense since the Jets decided to fire Robert Saleh and make Jeff Ulbrich the interim. They gave up 23 points to the Bills, 37 to the Steelers, 25 to Jacoby Brissett and the Patriots. I would almost argue, even though they gave up the most points 2 weeks ago, I would argue the performance on defense against the Patriots was their worst of the year. So that's been 3 weeks in a row where you've seen the defense get worse. And now you're getting a legitimately great quarterback coming into your building with a running game and defense to support him. If the Jets fall to 2-7, they would never do this. They're too proud and also too stupid. And this is not me attacking Jets fans, please. This is me attacking the front office. If they fall to 2-7, you know what they should do? They should call teams and say, hey, are you interested in Devontae Adams, Hassan Reddick? You want to trade for either one of them? They're not going to do that because that's them admitting they made a mistake and that they have no hope. But that is what a smart team would do. What's going to happen if they fall to 2-7? And if they win, if they go to 3-6, is the season still on? Is there still hope for them? Of course not. Of course not. Aaron Rodgers has been a bottom 10 quarterback in the league this year. There's a lack of harmony. It's bad coaching all around. This is a stat that I love to go to, and I want to pull it up to make sure I have the exact right number. But there are certain markers of efficiency. And yes, you can talk about your EPA per plays and your success rates and all that stuff. And I love that. There's absolutely a place for it. But if you just want to boil down in the simplest form how efficient is an offense and a defense, I like looking at yards per point. How many yards do you have to gain for you to score? Before I tell you where the Jets are, let's look at the top, which would be the fewest yards per point, the most efficient offenses. You've got the Detroit Lions, the Bills, the Vikings, and the Bears. Good for them. You've got the Buccaneers, the Bengals, the Commanders, all teams you would expect to be somewhere around the top of the best offense in the league. Maybe with the exception of the Bears because Caleb had a bad start to the year. Do you want to know where the Jets are? They're 28th. I'll read you the bottom five. It's the Dolphins, which is understandable because Tua's gone for a while. The Giants, the Panthers, the Patriots, and the Jets. That's their company. You want to know who is better than them in this particular category? The Chargers, the Titans, the Raiders, and the Browns. All those teams have more efficient offenses than the Jets. So when you look at the record, it's 2-6. Yeah, there's a 4-time MVP under center, but he's not playing like it. So it shouldn't be a surprise that they find themselves where they do. With all of this being said, the spread to me was a little bit baffling. It opened at Jets -1.5. It's still Jets -1.5. They are favored to win this game. It's a short week of rest. They're at home. Makes sense from that department. Texans are injured. No argument from me. I don't understand how you don't take Houston here. I don't. They control the clock very well. They've got the running game. CJ Stroud, again, maybe an uncharacteristic game against the Packers. 86 yards, 10 of 21. I get that. But he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. The Texans' defense, I believe, is 8th in EPA per play. So they're doing their thing. Will Anderson Jr. is coming to life. And they give up the lowest completion percentage to opposing quarterbacks in the entire league. So when you have an offense like the Jets, which is disjointed, Rodgers isn't making the best throws. He's not making the best reads. Devontae Adams hasn't ingratiated himself well. Not that he's done something wrong. I'm just saying he hasn't made a profound impact. Allen Lazard is injured. Garrett Wilson is good, but probably underachieving according to his level of talent. You've got injuries on the offensive line. I like the Texans, and I wouldn't take them on the money line. You might as well take them at +1.5 because you don't want to get screwed by the 1 point. But I would take the Texans to win this game. The Jets have a very good defense. I understand that, but so do the Texans, and they have a running game to lean back on, and they have the best player in the matchup. It is a short week, but this is a situation where you look at the best player to drive you to a win. Because they do hold opposing quarterbacks to the lowest completion percentage, I do expect them to give Aaron Rodgers trouble. I would probably be betting the under on Aaron Rodgers passing props, and I would look at the over on Joe Mixon. Houston's going to know we just got to go in there, control the clock, and we're giving ourselves a great chance. Joe Mixon, again, has been highly successful, 4 games of at least 100 rushing yards in his 5 this season. I think you look at him and you look at the Houston Texans, and they go in there and they win that game. I would be interested to hear what Tanner has to say about this, but ultimately he's not here. So let's move on to our next game. And this is probably going to be somewhere in the title on the cover of this episode. This is one of the best matchups, probably the best matchup of the week. It's the Detroit Lions against the Green Bay Packers. Now, the NFC North is no doubt about it the best division in the NFL. If it weren't for Jaden Daniels' Hail Mary, the worst team there would be 5-2. Ultimately, it is the Bears at 4-3. Both the Lions and the Packers look like maybe they might be the 2 best teams in the NFC. Certainly, the Lions are number 1. There should not be any argument about that. It just comes down to, are the Packers better than the 49ers? And if you ask me, yeah, they probably are. A full-strength Niners team might be a little bit different. But right now, from what we've seen with them, I think you got to give the Packers the edge there. So what this comes down to is, first of all, the Lions' offense is unflappable. When I read out those stats just a second ago, they lead the league in yards per point. They lead the league in points per game. They've got one of the best rushing attacks. They've got one of the best passing attacks. Jared Goff leads the NFL in completion percentage. They've got the best offensive line. This team is dominant. And I know that everybody's seen the stat about how teams do the week after they face the Lions. That's because the Lions are so physically imposing, more so than any other team in the league. And it really, really puts a beating on whoever they play. So that's something that you obviously want to keep in mind here. The Packers have found ways to win games despite Jordan Love being extremely careless with the football. And Jordan Love is going to make plays. Everybody knows that. He's got a strong arm. He's got arm talent. He's going to put the ball in harm's way because he knows a lot of the time those plays will lead to positives, and he's willing to accept the drawbacks. I've got a buddy who's actually a very big Packers fan, and he says, you never know on this particular dropback, is he Aaron Rodgers or is he Brett Favre? Because he's one of the two, but there's no rhyme or reason for which one it's going to be. I think that inherently makes him more of the Brett Favre ilk. Brett Favre was an MVP. Don't know why we're talking about him, why we're talking about him like he wasn't a good quarterback. He was just a turnover machine. Personal opinions about Brett Favre aside. But anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent here. The Packers have beaten good teams this year. They lost to the Eagles. It was week 1. It was in Brazil. There's this whole thing about that nobody could wear green because it would divide the gangs or something. It's bad luck. Players were told they shouldn't leave the hotel. Whatever. That basically does not even count. Might as well not have even happened. So in my eyes, they're really 6-1. The one loss was to the Vikings by 2 points when they were riding that high. They beat the Rams, the Cardinals, the Texans, and an improved Jaguars team in 4 straight weeks. And maybe most impressively, more impressive than anything, is that they've been able to survive, not just with Jordan Love, but with Malik Willis under center. And survive isn't even the right word. They've been able to thrive because they've gotten good quarterback play. They've gotten good offensive production pretty much all year, no matter which one of those two was under center. First and foremost, that's a huge testament to Matt LaFleur for being able to tailor his offense and continue to call plays in a way that brings the best out of whoever is under center. That's the marker of a good coach. Can you coach people and players of different styles and strengths and systems instead of only looking for people who can conform to you? Not that there's not a place for you to have your system, but you have to be adaptable. You have to be malleable. And that's what Matt LaFleur has proven himself to be. So I've been very impressed with that. I also think this is the best defense that the Packers have had in years. I think you've seen that play out in certain situations. You know, we were just talking about CJ Stroud. They held him to 10 of 21 passing for 86 yards when they played him. That's very impressive. So I want to see how they do against a divisional opponent and one that is playing extremely well. Now, I think the Lions are the best team in the NFC. And this might be disrespectful. It probably is disrespectful to the Chiefs. If Aiden Hutchinson was healthy, I would call the Lions the best team in the NFL. I rarely do that. I rarely move off of the Chiefs. I've picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl for the last 3 or 4 years straight. They've got the best quarterback that we have ever seen on his way to being the most accomplished, if you want to go into the whole GOAT thing. They've got one of the best coaches ever and probably the best coach in the NFL right now. They've got a top 3 defense. I understand it. If you ask me who's going to win the Super Bowl right now, my safe answer would be the Chiefs. But if Aiden Hutchinson was there, I would say the Lions are the most dangerous team. With all of this being said, I think the Packers win this game. They're at home against a divisional opponent, and they're outdoors, okay? I want to emphasize this. Jared Goff is great. He never plays outdoors. He hasn't played an outdoor game this entire season. We've seen it in the past with him. He steps down when he is put in adverse situations, particularly related to the weather. Now, the weather here won't be bad, and I can actually pull up what it's going to be if my computer will load. It's estimated to be 50 degrees and cloudy at kickoff. This is a 4:25 game. So it's not the end of the world, but still outdoors. There's going to be some wind. It's going to be a little nippy. It's not going to be your nice 70 degrees indoors. Jared Goff, in his one road game against the Packers last year, 19 of 28, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. It's not exactly the record-setting pace that we've seen from him recently. And you know what? Credit to the Lions because they still did win that game last year. They still won 34-20. The Packers obviously are much further along in their development, particularly Jordan Love is further along in his development right now. So they're going to be a better team. But still, that's got to be a concern here. When you look at what the Lions have done, I mean, they've embarrassed most teams. They blew the doors off the Titans last week, 52-14. They have a great game against the Vikings the week before that. And you know what they do? They embarrassed the Cowboys before that. They embarrassed the Seahawks before that. Their offense is so high scoring and free flowing, and they're digging into their bag of tricks constantly. And is Jared Goff catching a touchdown here? Is this a triple reverse? Is this a read option? You never know what's coming with these guys. At some point, not saying the Lions are disrespecting the game at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you have to respect that you have tough teams to play in the future. You don't want to show everybody your hand. You don't want to take out your cards and just show them off to all of your opponents. So you've won 5 straight games. You've averaged a crap ton of points in that stretch. You're leading the league in scoring. You're running a bunch of trick plays. You're leaving your home stadium. You're going outdoors. It's a division rival. They've also won 4 straight games, but they've been a little closer. They've done some damage to good offenses. I think this is a sneaky upset spot. I really do. And I'm honestly not even sure what the spread is on this game. So let me go find out. So the Packers are plus 3.5 at home. And I love that. I do think they'll win, but if you want my actual betting advice, plus 3.5, got to take that. Minus 120, so it's not split evenly down the middle, but who cares? Plus 3.5, I think that is a very good deal. So that's where I'd be going with that one. Talking about another NFC North team, the Chicago Bears. They're taking on the Arizona Cardinals. This is an interesting matchup, particularly just because I want to know which of these teams is making the playoffs. It'll probably be at least one of them. It could be both of them, and it could be neither of them. The Cardinals are leading the NFC West at 4-4, but the Niners and the Seahawks are 4-4, and the Rams are 3-4, and they're getting healthy. So what's going to happen out west? Kyler Murray is one of the 5 best QBRs in the league this season. Don't know if you've been paying attention to him. That's despite not having a great offensive line. That's despite the Cardinals' defense being pretty terrible. And Marvin Harrison Jr. not having a massive impact on the offense. So this is a testament to the offensive staff down there and what Kyler Murray's been able to do. On the flip side, the Chicago Bears, I mentioned it when I was talking about the last game. If they just defend the Hail Mary, they're 5-2 right now. And that would mean they would be tied with the Vikings for last in their division, but they'd only be 1 game out of first. The Bears have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and I don't think that's news to anybody. But what worried me so much last week was Caleb Williams, we know, started his NFL career very bad. And the first 3 weeks were just generally bad. The next 3 weeks, the worst game of them all was pretty good. And in each of those weeks, you saw progression. It was pretty good, very good. Wow, that was great. So going into a bye week, him being a rookie, him having all the weapons around him and all the talent in the world, you would expect him to come out and demolish what had been a bad Washington defense. That's not what happened at all. He was 4 of whatever he was for 36 yards with 10 minutes left in the game. Showed good mental toughness and perseverance, had a very good finish to the game, but he did not do what he needed to have the team in a position to win, even though they were. That's more to do with Washington's miscues in the red zone, penalties, dropped passes, whatever. The Bears' offense was not ready for that game. So I want to see how they perform against the Cardinals team that also does not have a good defense, and it's actually worse than Washington's is. Washington's quietly, it's been very good for the last month or so, but we saw them in the first 3 weeks of the season, and I think that image is still in a lot of our brains. Arizona's defense is not good. So Caleb Williams, this is a big moment for you. You were really bad for 3 weeks. You were really impressive for 3 weeks. Coming out of a bye, it was terrible. Now, I put that on coaching more than anything, especially when it's a rookie, because it's rookies are players you have to coach up. And when you come off of long rest advantages, bye weeks, whatever, if you play bad, if you don't have a good scheme, whatever it is, it's a testament to coaching. So now that that's out of the way, I want to see how they look here. I want to know if the Bears are a legitimate playoff contender, maybe not a playoff team just because of how tough their division is, but are they a real playoff contender? And how do they look against this Cardinals team and a Kyler Murray that is going to challenge Caleb Williams? Kyler's going to make plays. How is Caleb Williams going to respond? Time will tell. I really like looking at bye weeks from a betting perspective, a betting angle, by the way. Whenever the Jets had their bye week, forget, was it the Patriots? They played on the other side of it. Whoever it was, I took the other team's spread. Because it's like, the Jets don't have good coaches. Whether it was Saleh or Ulbrich, what have they done to make me believe they're good head coaches? So more time for bad coaches on bye weeks is almost a bad thing. When you're looking at spreads, they get extra points because they had extra rest, but the bad coaches don't usually capitalize on that. I did that with the Eagles and the Browns. Now the Eagles are definitely trending upward, but I don't think most people think Sirianni's a good coach. And the Eagles were favored by like 8.5 or 9 points. No, I'm taking the Browns. And of course, the Browns covered. They only lost by 4. So it's just a good strategy to keep in mind. And on the flip side, also, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Chiefs were underdogs coming off of a bye week. Huh? Are we serious? Sean McVay, LaFleur, these types of guys off bye weeks, you got to look at them. Okay, final game that we're going to talk about here. We're going to talk about the Cowboys versus the Atlanta Falcons. Not because I'm so much interested in what actually happens on the field. The Falcons are a nice story. Kirk Cousins deserves comeback player of the year. The offense is starting to click. They've got some good things going down there. With Dallas, it's kind of the opposite. The team is getting worse. The owner is failing to take accountability. Dak is the highest paid player in the history of football, and he's not playing well. They're dealing with injuries. The final score will be interesting. The actual on-field battle, to me at least, won't be, because I don't think either one of these teams are built for a deep run in the playoffs. What I want to know is, if the Cowboys lose this game, are they able to look themselves in the mirror? Because let's say the Lions beat the Packers, okay? Actually, it would probably be better if it was the opposite. Let's say the Packers beat the Lions. The Falcons beat the Cowboys. Dallas is 3-5 at this point. Detroit has just lost to a division rival. If Detroit says, hey, Jerry Jones, we will give you 2 firsts and a second, or whatever it is. Maybe it's just 2 firsts, whatever it works out to, for MICAH Parsons. Dallas has to think about it. They don't want to give up MICAH Parsons. I'm not a fool. I'm not advising them to just move off of the best player on their team who's on a rookie contract, although he's going to be looking for his money very soon. At a premier position, you need a quarterback, you need a line, you need a pass rusher, you need a head coach. That's how you win in the modern NFL. The Cowboys are not good. They have the worst run defense. They have the worst run offense in the league. They're probably going to fire their coach at the end of the season. The offensive line is getting worse. You have no weapons aside from CeeDee Lamb. A lot of players on defense, either old or not performing very great. You've got some standouts, sure. You've got your Trevon Diggses, Dak, CD, sure. MICAH, obviously, in that group. How much money can you afford to pay to a very few select amount of players while your team is bad? I don't think the Cowboys are going to be good next year. I see them winning 6, maybe 7 games next year. Do you want to pay all of this money to all of these guys? It will be a tough decision to make. And you know what? Maybe it's not MICAH Parsons. Maybe someone says, hey, we'll take DeMarcus Lawrence. Or we want Trevon Diggs. Whoever it is. Someone wants Jake Ferguson. Whatever the case may be. With the trade deadline approaching, if the Cowboys lose this weekend, are they smart enough to take their medicine and say, We can't win now. We can't win next year. We might have made a mess of this situation with Dak and CD because we waited so long. We had to pay them more money. Now they're taking up a huge hit on our cap. Do they move off of their players? And I'll tell you what, if Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, whoever becomes available, I mean, there's going to be so many teams calling for him. The Eagles absolutely will be because Howie Roseman's always active. They're in my mind, there's no way they're trading him to the Eagles. The Commanders, even though they're Dallas's biggest rivals, I think they would be slightly more tempted to trade someone to, but it's not going to be Micah. Like they're not sending their guy to him. The Lions, I think they're the team you've got to keep their eye on. They need a pass rusher, even though the defense hasn't really skipped a beat without Hutchinson. When you get to the playoffs and you need to stop, you can't replace players like him unless it's with players of that caliber. And to be that caliber, they got to be capable of winning Defensive Player of the Year. So Detroit is a team to keep your eye on. The Chiefs are probably fine. Could the Buffalo Bills, I know this is a year meant to be cleaning up their books a little bit. Could they show some interest? The Ravens, they're all in every year. They went out and they got Deontay Johnson. They added Derrick Henry, obviously, but their pass defense has been really bad. Do they go look and say, hey, we want Trevon Diggs. We want Diggs and Humphrey at our corner spots. Whatever the case may be, I just want to see how it plays out. Of course, Dallas could win this game. And if they do that, you know what? I guess they're alive for a playoff spot. I don't think they're going to be there. The Eagles, their schedule isn't, it's not the easiest in the world, but you would say it's easy before you would say it's difficult. The Commanders have the Giants this week. That should get them to 7-2. And then after that, they have the Steelers. It's a tough game, but it's at home, and it's a game they can definitely win. And then they're at Philadelphia. That game is going to show a lot about how this division is going to play out as well. But ultimately, I just want to see what happens here. It's the trade deadline. I'm surprised that NFL teams aren't normally more active than they are. I don't think we should quite be at baseball level where even the best players in the world are oftentimes mercenaries who are just jumping around from team to team. But I'm surprised it's not a little more NBA-like. You know, teams know when they're contenders and when they aren't. Certain positions, especially pass rush, offensive tackle, receiver. There's a lot of value with positions out there. So if teams come calling, I'm expecting at some point in the future teams will be more active with trades. I don't know when it's going to come. Probably won't be this year because it's normally a slow burn, these types of things. I just want to see what happens. This is one of the best times of the year. Everybody knows that the football is really starting to matter. Yeah, we've got the NHL and the NBA as well, and the World Series just wrapped up, but the NFL is America's game. Baseball is America's pastime. The NFL is America's game. And we're going to start to see really where the chips fall once we get through this week because we'll be halfway into the season. It'll be really start time to evaluating NFL or MVP odds, Super Bowl markets, and all that good stuff. And you know what? I'll be right here. And Tanner, not here today, but he will be back here on Monday. And we're going to be there to break it down for all of you guys. So please, if you have not already, hit the subscribe button. If I can do the outro right, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this episode. Drop some comments. Let me know what you thought about my thoughts. Let me know who you're going to be betting on this weekend. And I will catch you all in the next episode of Ride the Line.